A late-night flight departing Washington. A man in a worn jacket sits in seat 12F, quietly reading a small storybook with his daughter. Two businessmen in front snicker softly. Single dad, economy class, probably lost custody too. A flight attendant glances over, frowning when she notices the faded silver bracelet on his wrist. But minutes later, the co-pilot lowers his voice to the captain. "Sir, we're getting a code signal from passenger 12F. The entire cockpit freezes. Outside the window, two F-22 fighters close in. The captain's voice trembles. "Who the hell is sitting in 12F? Jack Rowan, 42 years old, single father, former Air Force command officer, now living quietly as a civilian radar engineer, raising his daughter alone. Tonight he's traveling with Ella. She's 10. They're flying to Arizona for a memorial service, honoring the unit he once led. On his wrist, a faded silver bracelet. Most people wouldn't notice it, but carved into the metal is a symbol. Guardian Flight 7, a classified designation. Only F-22 pilots who served under his command would recognize it. The airport terminal buzzes with weekend travelers, wealthy businessmen in tailored suits, families returning from vacations, everyone moving fast, talking loud, focused on themselves. Jack and Ella walk slowly through the gate. His jacket is old, practical. No brands, no flash. Ella carries a small backpack with a worn teddy bear hanging from the zipper. They board the plane, seat 12F, window seat, economy section. Jack helps Ella buckle her seatbelt, checking it twice. She smiles up at him. "Daddy, can we read the story about the princess and the pilot?" "Of course, sweetheart." Behind them, a man in a designer watch mutters to his colleague. Economy section, single dad, probably can't even afford the checked bag fee. The colleague smirks. "Look at that jacket. Thrift store clearance." Jack hears every word. His jaw tightens slightly, but he says nothing. He pulls out the storybook, opens it to Ella's favorite page. A flight attendant approaches, her smile polite but strained. She glances at Jack's overhead bin, where his small duffel bag sits. "Sir, you need to push that in further. You're blocking other passengers." "I'll take care of it," Jack says evenly. "Please do it now," she says, her tone cooling. "We're on a tight schedule." He stands, adjusts the bag. The businessmen exchange knowing looks. One of them whispers loudly enough for others to hear. "Some people just don't know how to travel." Jack returns to his seat. Ella looks up at him, confused. "Daddy, why is that lady upset?" "She's just doing her job, honey. She's busy. But you didn't do anything wrong." Jack smooths her hair gently. "Sometimes people forget their manners. That's okay. We don't have to." The plane fills up. More passengers board. A woman in expensive perfume sits across the aisle, wrinkling her nose at the worn fabric of Jack's jacket. A teenager behind them plays loud music through cheap earbuds, not caring who it bothers. The engines roar to life. The plane taxis toward the runway. Ella leans against her father's shoulder, clutching the storybook. "Daddy, do you miss flying?" Jack pauses. His eyes drift to the window, watching the ground crew below. Men in orange vests, guiding the plane with glowing batons. He used to command pilots who flew faster than sound, who defended entire airspaces, who trusted him with their lives. Now he's just another passenger, another face in the crowd. "I do," he says quietly, "but I have something better now." "What's that?" "You." Ella giggles, snuggling closer. The plane lifts off. The city lights fall away beneath them. Jack glances at his bracelet. The engraved symbol catches the cabin light for just a moment. No one notices. No one asks. And that's exactly how he wants it. But in a few hours, everything will change. 20 minutes into the flight, the seatbelt sign turns off. Passengers stand, stretching, opening overhead bins. The flight attendants begin the beverage service, pushing their cart down the narrow aisle. Jack remains seated, reading to Ella. She's lost in the story, pointing at pictures of clouds and planes, her imagination soaring higher than the aircraft itself. The flight attendant from earlier approaches with the cart. She glances at Jack with thinly veiled impatience. "Beverage? Water for her? Coffee for me, please," Jack says politely. She pours the drinks, hands them over with mechanical efficiency. No warmth, no eye contact. As she turns to leave, her cart bumps Jack's elbow, spilling coffee onto his tray table. "Oh," she says flatly, "you should be more careful." Jack grabs napkins, cleaning it up himself. "No problem." Ella frowns. "Daddy, she hit you." "It's fine, sweetie." But it's not fine. The businessman in front turns around, leaning over his seat. His breath smells like expensive whiskey. "You know, buddy, some of us paid for first class specifically to avoid people like you back here." Jack looks at him calmly. "People like me?" "Yeah, people who can't afford proper seats, who bring kids on late flights, who cause delays." He gestures dismissively at Jack's jacket. "Veteran discount doesn't make you special, man." The words hang in the air. Other passengers glance over. Some look away, embarrassed. Others watch with curiosity, waiting to see if there'll be a confrontation. Jack's hands rest on the armrests. His knuckles are scarred. Old injuries from years of training, combat simulations, high-altitude missions. But his voice remains steady. "I'm not trying to be special. I'm just trying to get home." The businessman scoffs. "Sure you are." He turns back around, muttering something to his colleague. They both laugh. Ella tugs on Jack's sleeve. Her eyes are wide, confused. "Daddy, why are they so mean?" Jack looks down at her. This little girl who sees the world as good, who believes in heroes and happy endings. He won't let these people steal that from her. He smiles gently, because they forgot something important. "What's that?" "That manners fly higher than money." Ella thinks about this for a moment, then nods seriously. "I'll remember that." "I know you will." The plane continues through the night sky. Most passengers settle into movies, books, sleep. The cabin lights dim. The hum of the engines becomes a lullaby. But then, something changes. A faint vibration runs through the aircraft. The lights flicker. Once, twice. Passengers stir, looking around nervously. The seatbelt sign dings on suddenly. The captain's voice crackles over the intercom. "Folks, we're experiencing some minor turbulence. Please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts." But Jack knows turbulence. He's flown through storms that would ground commercial fleets. This isn't turbulence. This is something else. He glances at the ceiling, where the emergency indicators are mounted. One of them flickers red for a split second before returning to normal. Radio interference. Navigation disruption. Jack's training kicks in instantly. He scans the cabin, assessing. The flight attendants look tense, whispering to each other. One of them picks up the cabin phone, speaking urgently. Passengers begin to panic. "What's happening? Are we going to crash? I knew I should have taken the morning flight." The businessman who mocked Jack earlier grips his armrests, his face pale. "This is ridiculous. I'm going to sue the airline." But Jack remains perfectly calm. He unbuckles his seatbelt, stands slowly. The flight attendant rushes over. "Sir, you need to sit down immediately." "I need to speak with the cockpit," Jack says quietly. "That's not possible. Return to your seat." "I'm a radar systems engineer. I can help." She hesitates, confused. "Sir, this isn't—" Jack raises his wrist. The silver bracelet catches the emergency lighting. He makes a subtle gesture with his hand. 3 fingers extended, thumb across palm. A signal. The flight attendant's eyes widen. She's former military herself. She recognizes it. Not just a signal, a command code. "Wait here," she whispers, and rushes toward the cockpit. In the cockpit, the co-pilot is troubleshooting the radar system. The captain is on the radio with air traffic control, trying to confirm their position. The flight attendant knocks urgently. They let her in. "Captain, there's a passenger in 12F. He's making hand signals." "Military code." The co-pilot looks up from his instruments. "What kind of code?" "Classified command level. I've only seen it once during my service." The captain and co-pilot exchange glances. The co-pilot punches coordinates into his screen, checks something. His face goes white. "Sir," he says slowly, "we're being shadowed." "What?" 2 aircraft, military. They've been tracking us since we left Washington." Outside the cockpit window, through the darkness, Two shapes emerge from the clouds. F-22 Raptors, America's most advanced fighter jets. They close in, matching speed perfectly. Their running lights blink in sequence. A signal. The co-pilot's hands shake as he reads the incoming transmission. Captain, they're asking for confirmation of passenger 12F's identity. The captain stares out at the fighters. Who the hell is sitting in 12F? The captain stares at the transmission screen. His co-pilot is frozen, hand hovering over the radio controls. Sir, what do we do? The captain takes a deep breath. This is unprecedented. Military fighters escorting a commercial flight. A passenger signaling classified codes. None of this makes sense. Unless. Get him up here, the captain says. Now. The flight attendant nods and rushes back into the cabin. Passengers are still murmuring nervously, staring out windows at the darkened sky. Some have noticed the fighters now, the sleek shadows cutting through clouds. She arrives at row 12. Jack is back in his seat, holding Ella's hand. The little girl is scared but trusting her father completely. Sir, the flight attendant says, her voice different now, respectful. The captain requests your presence in the cockpit. Passengers nearby overhear. The businessman turns around, confused. What? Him? The janitor-looking guy. Jack stands. He leans down to Ella. Down to, I'll be right back, sweetheart. Stay buckled in, okay? Okay, Daddy. He kisses her forehead and follows the attendant forward. Every eye in the cabin watches him walk. Whispers ripple through the rows. Who is that guy? Why is he going to the cockpit? Is he some kind of air marshal? The businessman's colleague nudges him. I thought you said he was nobody. The businessman says nothing. For the first time tonight, he looks uncertain. Jack enters the cockpit. The captain and co-pilot turn to face him. Both men are experienced. Thousands of flight hours between them. But right now they look like rookies. Mr. Rowan? The captain asks. That's right. We received your signal. Care to explain? Jack steps closer to the instrument panel, scans the displays with practiced efficiency. His eyes move across radar screens, navigation systems, communication arrays. He processes information faster than both pilots combined. Your transponder has a harmonic interference, Jack says calmly. It's causing false readings on military radar. That's why they scrambled to intercept. The co-pilot blinks. How do you know that? Because I designed the system you're using. Well, the previous generation. I recognize the failure pattern. You're an engineer. Among other things. Jack reaches past the co-pilot, adjusts a frequency dial, flips two switches in sequence, recalibrates the output signal. The static on the radio clears immediately. The co-pilot stares at the instruments. That's impossible. You just fixed a problem our entire maintenance crew couldn't diagnose. Jack steps back. You'll want to replace that module when you land. It's failing intermittently. Could cause bigger problems on future flights. The captain studies Jack carefully. The worn jacket, the quiet confidence, the bracelet on his wrist. Sir, the captain says slowly, that signal you made, I've never seen it before, but my co-pilot has. He served 8 years in the Air Force. The co-pilot nods. It matched a decommissioned command code, high level, the kind only senior officers would know. Jack meets their eyes. Old habits die hard. Silence. The captain glances out the window. The two F-22s are still there, holding formation. They're not leaving. They're waiting for something. The radio crackles. A new voice. Crisp, military. Commercial flight, November 7-3. Whiskey, this is Guardian Flight Lead. Request confirmation. Is General Jack Rowan aboard your aircraft? The cockpit freezes. General. The captain's jaw drops. The co-pilot's hands slip off the controls. Jack reaches for the radio mic. The captain hands it to him wordlessly. Guardian Flight Lead. This is Rowan. Confirmed. A pause, then, through the radio. Sir, permission to render honors? Jack looks out at the fighters. He can see the pilots in their cockpits now, their helmets, their focused postures. These men and women. Protecting the skies. Just like he once did. Permission granted, Jack says quietly. What happens next will be remembered by every person on that plane for the rest of their lives. The two F-22s break formation simultaneously. They pull up and out, executing a perfect tactical barrel roll in perfect synchronization. As they roll, their position lights flash in sequence. 3 times, 3 deliberate pulses, the traditional salute, reserved for commanding generals, reserved for legends. They complete the maneuver and return to escort position, flanking the commercial aircraft like honor guards. Through the radio, "Welcome home, General Rowan. Guardian Flight salutes you, sir." Jack's throat tightens. He hasn't heard those words in years, since he retired, since he chose a quiet life over medals and ceremonies, since he chose Ella over everything else. "Thank you, Guardian Flight," he says. "Fly safe." "Always, sir." The fighters peel away, climbing into the night sky, their afterburners igniting briefly like shooting stars, and then they're gone. Jack hands the mic back to the captain. The captain can barely speak. "You're a general." "Was," Jack corrects. "Now I'm just a dad trying to get his daughter home." "Sir, I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. Just land this plane safely." Jack turns to leave the cockpit. The flight attendant is standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. She snaps to attention, renders a perfect salute. Jack returns it with quiet dignity. As he walks back through the cabin, everything has changed. The passengers are standing. Not all of them, but many. They saw the fighters. They heard the radio transmission echoing faintly through the cabin speakers. Word has spread like wildfire. The businessman who mocked him earlier is standing too. His face is red. Ashamed. Jack walks past him without a word. When he reaches row 12, Ella is waiting. Her eyes are wide with wonder. "Daddy, those planes did a trick. Did you see?" Jack sits down, pulls her close. "I saw, sweetheart." "Were they saying hello to you?" "Something like that." The cabin is silent now, every passenger watching. The flight attendant who spilled coffee earlier approaches, her hands clasped. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I should have been more respectful." Jack looks up at her kindly. "You treated me like any other passenger. That's exactly what I wanted." She nods, wiping her eyes, and walks away. The businessman turns around one more time. His voice is small. "General, I apologize. I was completely out of line." Jack considers him for a moment. "You didn't know who I was. But that's the point. You should treat everyone with respect, not just the people you think are important." The man nods, chastened, and turns back around. The plane continues through the night, but the atmosphere has transformed. Hostility replaced by reverence. Mockery replaced by awe. Ella falls asleep against her father's shoulder, dreaming of planes and heroes. Jack stares out the window at the stars, his bracelet catching the light one more time. An hour later, the plane begins its descent into Phoenix. The captain's voice comes over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be landing shortly. I want to thank you for your patience during tonight's unexpected events." He pauses, then adds, "And I want to personally acknowledge passenger 12F General Jack Rowan. Sir, it's an honor to have you aboard." The cabin erupts in applause. Jack doesn't move, doesn't acknowledge it. He simply holds Ella, who stirs slightly at the noise but doesn't wake. The plane touches down smoothly. As they taxi toward the gate, passengers begin gathering their belongings. But there's a difference now. People make space for Jack, offer to help with his bag, smile at him with genuine warmth. The businessman from earlier stands, waiting until Jack reaches the aisle. "General, please, go ahead." Jack nods. "Thank you." As the cabin door opens, something unusual happens. There are people waiting on the jetway. Not airport staff, military personnel. A formation of 6 servicemen and women in dress uniforms, standing at attention. Jack steps off the plane, Ella's hand in his. The moment his foot touches the jetway, the formation salutes in unison. An older officer, a colonel, steps forward. "General Rowan, welcome home, sir." Jack returns the salute. "At ease, Colonel." "Sir, we received word from Guardian Flight. Your former squadron wanted to ensure you receive proper honors upon arrival." "That wasn't necessary. With respect, sir, it absolutely was." Behind them, passengers are emerging from the plane. They stop, forming a corridor on either side, watching in silence. Some are filming on their phones. Others are simply witnessing history. The flight attendant who was rude earlier steps out, sees the military formation, and begins to cry. She stands with her hand over her heart. The businessman emerges next. He sees the scene and stops dead. His colleague beside him whispers, "We mocked a general." We mocked a hero," the businessman corrects quietly. Jack walks through the formation with Ella. As they pass each uniformed officer, they maintain their salutes until he's clear. At the end of the jetway in the terminal, more people are waiting. Civilians, veterans, people who heard what happened and came to witness. An elderly man in a Vietnam veteran's cap steps forward. His eyes are wet. "Thank you for your service, General." Jack shakes his hand firmly. "Thank you for yours, sir." A young woman holding a baby approaches. "My husband is deployed right now, flying F-18 missions. Thank you for everything you've done for people like him." Jack touches the baby's tiny hand. "Your husband is the brave one. Tell him we're all proud of him." Ella tugs on Jack's jacket. "Daddy, why is everyone being so nice now?" Jack kneels down to her level, right there in the middle of the terminal. People gather around, giving them space but listening. "You remember what I told you on the plane?" he asks gently. "That manners fly higher than money?" "That's right. But there's something else. Sometimes people forget to look past what they see on the outside. They forgot that every person has a story. Tonight, they remembered. So they're saying sorry? In their own way, yes." Ella thinks about this, then throws her arms around her father's neck. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, sweetheart." Behind them, the colonel speaks quietly to his formation. "That's what real leadership looks like. Remember this moment." Jack stands, takes Ella's hand, and they walk toward baggage claim. Just a father and daughter. Nothing more. Nothing less. 1 year later, a middle school auditorium in Phoenix. Parents fill the seats, cameras ready. It's the annual speech competition. Ella Rowan, now 11, walks onto the stage. She's wearing a simple blue dress. In her hand, a note card. But she doesn't need it. She knows every word by heart. "My hero doesn't wear a cape," she begins. Her voice is clear, confident. "He doesn't have superpowers. He doesn't need them." The audience leans forward. "Last year I was on a plane with my dad. People were mean to him. They laughed at his old jacket. They thought he wasn't important because he didn't look rich." Ella pauses, looking out at the crowd. Some of the parents recognize her. Word has spread in their community about what happened that night. But then something happened. The plane had problems. My dad fixed them. And then 2 fighter jets came. They did a special trick in the sky. Just for him. She smiles at the memory. That's when everyone found out. My dad used to be a general. He commanded pilots. He protected our whole country. But he gave it all up to take care of me. Her voice wavers slightly. He never told anyone. He never bragged. He just went to work every day. He made my breakfast. He helped with my homework. He read me stories at night. Tears glisten in her eyes. My dad taught me that real heroes don't need medals. They don't need people to know who they are. They just need hearts brave enough to serve. The auditorium is silent. So when people ask me who my hero is, I tell them, it's my dad, not because he was a general, but because he chose to be my father. Ella steps back from the microphone. The audience rises to their feet, applauding. Many are crying, teachers, parents, students. In the back row, Jack Rowan stands with the other parents. He's wearing the same worn jacket, the same faded jeans, the bracelet still on his wrist. He wipes his eyes quickly, proudly. After the ceremony, Jack and Ella walk across the parking lot toward their car. The sun is setting, painting the Arizona sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Ella skips ahead, then turns back. Daddy, did I do good? You did perfect, sweetheart. They reach the car. But before they get in, Jack pauses. He looks up at the sky. 2 white contrails streak across the sunset, forming a perfect V-shape, a training flight from the nearby Air Force base, or maybe something more. A final salute from old friends who never forgot. Jack's voice soft and reflective. They mocked a seat number, but they forgot Respect isn't assigned, it's earned. Ella takes his hand. They stand together, watching the contrails slowly fade. The sound of jet engines echoes in the distance, growing quieter. The light of the setting sun bathes them both in gold. And somewhere high above, Guardian Flight continues its eternal watch. Subscribe if you believe true honor never retires.